Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in the G7 summit in Evian, France, to exchange views on regional and global issues, also to hold bilateral meetings with world leaders. US and Iran agree to halt war. Negotiations for permanent truce and Tehran's nuclear program continue. Israel says it's not bound by the terms of the deal. Indian government restricts Telegram access till 22nd of June ahead of NEET-UG re-examination to curb cheating rackets. The exam body, National Testing Agency, welcomes the move. And at the FIFA World Cup 2026, Cape Verde stuns Spain in a scoreless draw. Belgium settles for 1-1 draw with Egypt, and Iran holds New Zealand to a thrilling 2-2 draw. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to meet G7 leaders in the French resort town of Evian. Addressing the pressures on the global economy is high on the agenda. India has been invited as an outreach partner country by host France. On the sidelines of the meeting, the Indian Prime Minister is also scheduled to hold several bilateral meetings with other world leaders. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh reports from France.
On the third leg of the Europe visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the G7 summit in Evian-les-Bains in France. During the summit, he will exchange views with G7 leaders and those from invited partner countries and international organizations.
India's regular participation at the G7 summits reflects the increasing recognition of India's role and contributions in addressing global challenges relating to peace, security, development and environmental sustainability. Also at the G7, as in other international forums, including the G20 and the OAS of Global South Summit, India has consistently brought to the forefront the priorities, concerns and developmental aspirations of the Global South.
The G7 is an informal grouping of leading industrialized nations, including the United States, France, Germany, Japan, United Kingdom, Italy, and Canada. The EU participates in all discussions as a guest. In addition to the members, France has invited India, Brazil, Egypt, Kenya, South Korea, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Ukraine, and the UAE as outreach partner countries. Ahead of the summit, world leaders arrived at the French resort town. Announcement of a peace deal by the United States and Iran has raised the expectations from the gathering of leaders. On the sidelines of the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also hold bilateral meetings with several world leaders. As BRICS chair in 2026, participation of India in G7 assumes greater importance. The priorities of the G7 are diverse, from sustainable growth to critical mineral supply chain to issues of geopolitical conflicts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's presence at the G7 summit means that the concerns of the Global South will find a credible, trusted voice on this influential platform. With camera person Aniket Dubey, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Evian.
At the ongoing G7 summit in Evian in France, India's deepened engagement with the world's advanced economies has emerged as a cornerstone of global cooperation. India's engagement with the world's leading industrialized nations has grown significantly and is now truly indispensable as the country has emerged as a vital and valued partner for the G7 countries. For the first time during 2022 to 2023 and BRICS 2026, India participated upstream in G7 processes, including Sherpa meetings, ministerial sessions, marking a new level of partnership with the grouping. Under its Vaccine Maitri initiative, India supplied nearly 66 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to 95 countries, with G7 nations among the beneficiaries of this global support during the pandemic. India's innovative digital health solutions have inspired many G7 countries, while its One World, One Health approach sets a strong example for global health cooperation. Yoga proved highly effective for physical and mental health during the COVID-19 crisis worldwide, and the establishment of WHO's Global Center for Traditional Medicine in India further highlighting India's soft power in wellness. The India-France Year of Innovation 2026 is driving new momentum in technology collaboration as joint defence programs and the Indo-French Innovation Network continue to strengthen bilateral ties in technology, health and security. Over the years, India has had a major role in the G7 when it comes to various global issues. India has leveraged its significant strategic position in the Indo-Pacific to amplify the voice of the global South. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for stronger international solidarity against terrorism while emphasizing urgent global challenges, including that of climate change, artificial intelligence and energy security. By bridging the concerns of developing nations with the priorities of the world's most advanced economies, India has reinforced its growing influence and indispensable role within the G7 framework. And DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh joins us from Evian, France on the phone line. Shubhendu, first of all, tell us what is the special relevance of this G7 summit in the current global environment?
Hello, Tanvi. Yes, this G7 summit in Evian, France comes at a critical time for global geopolitics. The manner in which diverse supply chains, particularly energy supply chain, has come under pressure with the conflict in West Asia. There are, of course, long-term economic stability, economic cooperation vision that the leaders of the G7 work towards. There are, of course, concerns of the global South, which also will be taking center stage with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's participation, and India as a partner country with the G7. There are themes of health concerns, particularly collaboration on cutting-edge research in cancer care. If we talk about protecting minors, children online, that also has come up as an important priority for the G7 leaders this time. But the conflict in West Asia in particular, and given that there is a possibility of peace soon between Iran and the United States, that in particular, Tanvi, has charged up the atmosphere in this resort town of Evian.
Indeed. In recent years, India has been repeatedly invited to participate in the G7 summits. What does this tell us, Shubhendu, about India's growing stature under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
Tanvi, India is seen as an absolutely indispensable partner on every international platform, not just because it is one of the fastest growing economy, not only because it represents a significant cross-section of the world population, but also in the manner in which India has partnered with like-minded countries, with countries of the global South. The kind of interventions, and some of them you very prominently mentioned in your links earlier, about vaccine diplomacy, about sustainable energy supply chains, particularly India's investment in International Solar Alliance, bringing in the world to harness the power of clean energy, creating digital solutions that can be easily adopted during the time of pandemics, not only in the time of pandemics, but also digital solutions such as UPI, which are becoming a trend in countries across the world, including developed countries such as France. So in that sense, there are diverse ways in which India has positioned itself under leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, an absolutely indispensable partner in global affairs. And the platform of G7, for that matter, is no different. In fact, on the leadership and chairship of France this year, India has been more deeply engaged in various rounds of talks running up to the Leaders Summit. Also, remember, India chairs the BRICS summit, the BRICS leadership grouping this year. In that sense, India always put forth the concerns of the global But even formally, as chair of the BRICS, India's presence is actually the presence of an important voice from the global south. Tanvi?
Thank you very much, Shubhendu, for all those updates. Yes, the summit starting on a positive note as regards the West Asian crisis and the framework agreement is concerned. Let me now connect with Dr. Rajan Kumar, Professor, School of International Studies from the JNU. He's joining us from Astana, Kazakhstan. Welcome, Dr. Rajan, to the show. Well, yes, some key issues during this G7 summit are going to be the major geopolitical crises, including the war in Ukraine, the West Asia crisis. Yes, the framework agreement has been signed, but the path to peace ahead and the new rules of play of global governance. Could you shed some light on these issues?
Thank you for having me here. And I think, this forum, this multilateral forum, what you call it, G7, this is important for the macroeconomic global stability, but also for security concerns. I'm talking about the global security concerns. The priority of this summit would be global security concern because you have a crisis in West Asia, as you rightly pointed out, but also the next one, because some deal has been struck between United States and Iran. So the next focus is likely to be Ukraine, if some possibility can be explored, if US and the other 6 countries of the G7, they come together on the issue of Ukraine. So some kind of possibility is there. But at this moment, there is a division between the European perception of Ukraine war and the way Trump sees it. And those tensions are pretty obvious. So that is second issue. But coming to the main concern, because if you see the French agenda, the France has put macroeconomic global stability, economic stability at the top of this at the top of this agenda of G7. So essentially, it is what France and the G7 countries are trying to do, are trying to invite the democracies from across the global South countries, except some of the countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, which are not exactly democracies. But the geopolitical and geoeconomic stability, that would be the primary concern of G7, and they know that that cannot be achieved in today's context without participation from India. And as a consequence, India is the legitimate representative from the global South, and that is being recognized by G7 countries. And as a consequence, India is a regular visitor. India has been invited in for the last few years in all the G7 summits, and India has participated. Also because, these countries recognize that, say for instance, why India has been invited and China has not been invited, because the G7 agenda also is related to some kind of, issues which are emerging because of the growing rivalry between the G7 countries and China, where India can play a very useful role. So those are the concerns which are likely to be discussed. But coming to the main agenda, geoeconomic stability, the crisis that you have in geopolitical crisis that you have in different parts of the world, then the issue of critical supply chain, where the rare earth material which is controlled by China, and some of the concerns are there in Europe that if those materials are not supplied the way it has been done in the past, so then these countries would be in a difficult situation. So they are trying to find a way so that supply chain disruption does not take place globally. They're also talking about this, what you call the green transition, green energy transition, where the focus would be on the renewable energy, limiting the emission of carbon, etc. But again, there are issues between the United States and European countries. US does not agree to the what you call the green transition, and now it has started producing coal as well as enhancing the production of the crude oil, etc. So there are many issues, and also the G7 in today's world is important for the European countries, because there is a tension emerging between this, what you call G6 plus United States. So how can they hold it together? Because there is a fear that if the tension kind of grows, then the G7 may not exist. So how can they hold together, especially the European countries and Japan? So that is the major concern of this summit.
And compare
today.
it with the no G7 protests going on in Geneva at the moment. Some other priorities identified for this G7 summit include creating the conditions for balanced, sustainable and shared growth, building new consensus on international solidarity, strengthening critical mineral value chains. Do you think these would also be likely highlighted at the summit?
Of course, the main concern for Europe is that Europe's largest trading partner, the two trading partners, one is United States and the second one is China. But at the same time, there is also a concern in Europe that European economy, they need to de-risk. That's the term used, not decouple, but kind of de-risk. So the critical areas where Europe is dependent on China, how can China continue to receive the rare earth material from China? So that is a concern. And also, say for instance, there's a concern that if China does something on Taiwan, so what kind of steps European countries would be taking vis-a-vis China? So how to deal with that while remaining engaged with China in terms of trade? That is the concern which kind of which is an issue in Europe, and that's why Europe wants to remain connected to United States, but also Europe wants to explore possibilities with the countries of Global South, with which it can have a great economic and trade partnership. It can also ensure that the things which are being produced in China, partly that can be produced in countries like India, Egypt, or Kenya. So these are the issues which will be discussed. There is a concern that whether they can come with a joint statement, that we are not certain, but there are some concerns expressed by experts that the joint statement may not be possible, but we'll have to wait and watch whether they come with the joint statement or not.
Okay, before I let you go, Dr. Rajan, India has brought issues of Global South to the fore at the previous G7 summit as well. Is India likely to raise any issues of the Global South in this summit as well? If so, which issues are going to get prominence?
I think, what are the main issues of Global South? The first and the foremost is the kind of supply chain disruptions which have taken place in the past. In the last few months, we have seen the energy prices have gone up in all the countries of the Global South. The food supply has been disrupted because of the wars which are going on. First, it happened in Ukraine, and then it happened in Iran. So because of that, inflation is very high. The supply of fertilizer has been impacted. So as a consequence, food security has become an issue for the countries of the Global South, and also the green energy transition. And India has been playing a very active role in the what you call Solar Energy Alliance or green energy transition, controlling the emission of carbon, etc. So these are the major issues apart from what you call sustainable development. So these are the issues that will be raised by India, by Prime Minister of India, as a voice as a spokesperson of the Global South. And many of the countries in the Global South, they respect India's voice, and they think that India is the right representative for the voice of the Global South. So those are the issues would be raised with the leaders of G7 at Evian.
Yes, nonetheless, the summit has got a positive signal, so to say, to start the deliberations, the framework agreement between US and Iran being signed. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajan Kumar, for joining us on DD India NewsHour at the moment. All right, still to come on the show. Shipping resumes in the Strait of Hormuz after the US lifts its naval blockade. At least 5 Iranian vessels pass through the strategic waterway. Tremors hit Palu and Sigi regions in Indonesia. No immediate reports of casualties or damage so far.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I am Tanvi Taneja. US President Donald Trump on Monday said that a preliminary deal with Iran has been signed and the text of the deal would be released soon after a formal signing ceremony in Geneva on Friday. Trump said a preliminary deal to end the war with Iran has already been signed and suggested that details of the agreement are set to be published pretty soon. Trump also said that ships were again moving through the Strait of Hormuz and that the vital oil route would be completely open by Friday, adding later that he did not think that they would need much help keeping the waterway open.
Me to say it's signed, the deal's all signed, and the strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found, but it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened.
Trump also said that Iran had agreed to never have a nuclear weapon in a Truth Social post on Tuesday, dismissing reports that the United States was paying Iran some $300 million as fake news. The agreement under the discussion involves a $300 billion reconstruction fund, not $300 million to be paid by neighboring Gulf states. The U.S. officials said that the agreement had been signed electronically by President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. The U.S. officials also said that the MOU will provide a structure for how the U.S.-Iran relationship will operate in the future, adding that the deal will extend a ceasefire for another 60 days, during which the sides will negotiate the details of a final agreement. Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Tuesday that ending the war in Lebanon was the most important issue in the peace deal with the US announced the day before. During a briefing with foreign diplomats broadcast on state television, Araghchi said the end of the war was declared on Monday when the agreement with the US was finalized. The Iranian Foreign Minister has stressed that ending the wars on Iran and Lebanon is interconnected, and Tehran would view any continued occupation in Lebanon as a violation of the Memorandum of Understanding reached with the United States. He said any Israeli attack on Lebanon from now on would never be accepted. Araghchi further said that the continuation of the Israeli occupation of Lebanese territory is a violation of the Memorandum of Understanding reached. He added that the MOU will officially enter into force on Friday. While Iran said that the deal requires a full cessation of hostilities, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel would keep its forces in southern Lebanon and would retain the right to respond to attacks from Hezbollah. Now, amid all this, shipping activity through the Strait of Hormuz has begun after the United States lifted its naval blockade under the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding reached with Iran. According to Iranian media reports, at least 5 Iranian vessels, including 3 oil tankers and 2 cargo ships, have passed through the strategic waterway since Washington announced the removal of the blockade. Iran's news agency also reported vessel movements, including a very large crude carrier heading towards Iranian ports. The developments come as Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi briefed Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri on the MOU clause addressing the hostilities. So, as per US President Donald Trump, the Strait of Hormuz will reopen on Friday, but European leaders remain cautious, raising concerns about what happens next and whether any ceasefire agreements will hold in the long term. For more on the story, we're joined by DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu, joining me from Berlin. Chiponda, what exactly are the European leaders worried about?
European leaders are concerned about whether this is actually realistic, expecting the Strait of Hormuz to reopen on Friday after that agreement, which was announced by President Trump, is signed by the United States and Iran. They have more practical questions about what happens after that, because European countries too may have to contribute to efforts linked to getting oil and gas flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. So European leaders want to know exactly what was agreed between the United States and Iran before they can commit to any demining missions or patrols in the strait. And that's according to reports coming from the G7 meeting in France, where US President Trump is meeting with the leaders of the G7 group of nations, which includes Germany, France, and Italy. Now, reportedly, there appears to be some difficulty on agreeing on a shared position and an agreement on how to proceed. So the role European countries can play once the US-Iran deal is signed could also help with the implementation of a ceasefire.
Okay, Chiponda, if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't reopen immediately, what impact could this US-Iran deal have on European economies?
There are still concerns over the medium to long-term impact of the Iran war and whether a ceasefire will really hold. And of course, what all of that means for inflation here in Europe. And that is why European leaders aren't overly optimistic. Now, yesterday, during the Euro Finance Summit in Frankfurt, the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, and the Bundesbank president, Joachim Nagel, expressed cautious optimism. Now, the German central bank head said it will take months for the transportation of oil supplies via the Strait of Hormuz to normalize. Now, production facilities in the Middle East have been damaged or shut down during the war, so it will take a while for production to be ramped up to pre-Iran war levels.
Okay, Chiponda, what are the factors are continuing to drive inflation higher?
We don't really have a real sense of the effect of the Iran war on inflation here in Europe. Its impact has also been cushioned by fiscal measures aimed at lowering energy prices. And here in Germany, for instance, these measures helped dampen the inflation rate in May by 0.4%, according to the Bundesbank. So once these fiscal measures expire, inflation may remain elevated even if traffic through the Strait of Hormuz begins to recover. And the expectation is that getting to pre-Iran war traffic levels will take months, also because oil and gas production needs to be ramped up again. And there is also the need to clear sea mines and resolving issues such as insurance. So there are so many variables and unanswered questions, and those too could very well affect the cost and availability of insurance for ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. And this is why the expectation is that inflation here in Europe could be sticky for the coming months.
Okay, thank you very much, Chiponda. Chiponda Chembelu joining me from DW Berlin. Meanwhile, oil prices extended their losses on Tuesday as markets weighed prospects for a resumption of supply through the key Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude futures were down 0.5% at $82.72 a barrel. US crude was down 0.3% at $80.51 a barrel. Earlier on Monday, oil prices fell nearly 5% to their lowest close since March the 4th, after US President Donald Trump said that an MOU was signed to end the US-Israeli war with Iran. The hostilities led to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz that typically carried 1/5 of the world's oil supply before the conflict. More from Asia, a shallow 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck central Indonesia on Tuesday with no reports of casualties or damage so far. The tremor hit east-southeast of Palu, central Sulawesi province this morning, but did not pose a tsunami threat. Indonesia, a vast archipelago in Southeast Asia, experiences frequent earthquakes due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire. You're watching DD India NewsHour, still to come on the show. Indian government restricts over-the-counter sale of cough syrups, making a doctor's prescription mandatory for the purchase. From Ayodhya to Kashi to Kedarnath, Dwarka and Kanyakumari. A special report up ahead on India's cultural connect restored in the last 12 years. And in the run-up to the International Day of Yoga on 21st June, we assess how yoga has become an indispensable foundation for modern living.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what save your.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I am Tanvi Taneja. A look again at our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in the G7 summit in Evian, France, to exchange views on regional and global issues, also to hold bilateral meetings with world leaders. US and Iran agree to halt war. Negotiations for permanent truce and Tehran's nuclear program continue. Israel says it's not bound by the terms of the deal. Indian government restricts Telegram access till 22nd of June ahead of NEET-UG re-examination to curb cheating rackets. The exam body, National Testing Agency, welcomes the move. And at the FIFA World Cup 2026, Cape Verde stuns Spain in a scoreless draw. Belgium settles for 1-1 draw with Egypt, and Iran holds New Zealand to a thrilling 2-2 draw. The Government of India has restricted Telegram in the country ahead of the NEET 2026 re-examination. National Testing Agency has welcomed the government's decision to restrict access to the Telegram platform till 22nd of June, covering the day of the NEET-UG 2026 re-examination and its immediate aftermath. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has also directed the platform to disable its message editing feature in India until June 30th. According to the National Testing Agency, NTA, the measures were taken in response to the organized use of Telegram by cheating rackets that allegedly attempted to defraud NEET candidates through false claims of access to examination papers. The agency said that several Telegram channels had demanded money from candidates and their families in exchange for purported access to the re-examination paper, which it described as a fraudulent practice. The NTA said that the message editing restriction was intended to prevent the creation of fabricated paper leak by allowing users to alter older messages while retaining original timestamps. Meanwhile, more than 10 lakh students have downloaded their admit cards for NEET-UG 2026 in about 24 hours since the launch of the admit card download facility. In a social media post, the National Testing Agency informed that their tech teams are monitoring the load on the servers and that the NTA will ensure that all candidates get their admit cards well in time for the examination. More news from India. Over-the-counter sale of syrups, including cough syrups, without a doctor's prescription will now be prohibited. The centre has amended the Drugs Rules 1945, removing the word syrups from a category of exempted drugs listed under Schedule K, signalling tighter regulatory oversight of syrup-based formulations. Schedule K under the Drugs Rules 1945 lists categories of drugs that are exempt from certain provisions governing manufacture, sale and distribution subject to specified conditions. With the removal of syrups from the exempted category, syrup formulations covered under that provision will no longer receive the same regulatory relaxation available earlier. The amendment comes amid growing regulatory attention on cough and oral liquid medicines following safety concerns in recent years. The first batch of this year's Kailash Mansarovar Yatra pilgrims arrived in the northeast Indian state of Sikkim for their onward journey through Nathula Pass. The first batch of 44 people, including 32 men and 12 women, arrived in Gangtok Monday evening. The pilgrims will undergo a 4-day acclimatization program in Gangtok, following which they will proceed for Gyangje on June 20th. Gyangje is a town in Tibet that serves as a transit point for pilgrims taking the Nathula Pass route. The Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports is hosting the Viksit Bharat Youth Parliament in New Delhi under the leadership of Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia. Speaker of the lower house of Indian Parliament Om Birla inaugurated the national level Viksit Bharat Youth Parliament event on Tuesday, bringing together young participants from the country to engage with the democratic processes and parliamentary functioning. Building on the success of the previous editions, the flagship initiative aims to strengthen youth engagement and governance by providing participants with a hands-on undertaking of policy making, debate and legislative procedures. The Viksit Bharat Youth Parliament is far more than a program. It is a movement that channels the energy, ideas, aspirations of India's youth into the national conversation. The Consulate General of India, together with the US Indian Community Foundation, hosted the unveiling of a statue of Swami Vivekanand by Ambassador of India to the US, Vinay Mohan Kuatra. The ceremony was attended by elected officials, diaspora associations and community leaders. It featured a rendition of the national song Vande Mataram, along with remarks from dignitaries. Addressing the gathering, Ambassador Kuatra highlighted India's rapid economic growth, transformative socio-economic progress and the deepening India-US partnership. Speakers at the event also paid tribute to Swami Vivekanand's teachings, emphasizing his message of service, harmony and unity among all faiths. This continues to inspire people across the world. Over the past 12 years, the Narendra Modi-led government has placed a strong emphasis on cultural heritage, spiritual centres and civilizational identity. From Ayodhya and Kashi to Kedarnath, Dwarka and Kanyakumari, several initiatives have sought to restore, redevelop and reconnect India with its cultural roots. Our next report looks at the key highlights of India's 12-year journey in the realm of culture.
Uttaram yat samudrasya himadreshaiva dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama bharati yatra santatihi.
From the snow-crowned Himalayas to the waves that kiss the Indian Ocean, from the ghats of Varanasi to the shores of Dwarka, there flows an invisible thread. A thread woven through millennia of memory, faith, knowledge and civilization. For centuries, that thread endured every storm. It survived invasions, colonialism, neglect and the relentless march of time. Yet, it waited, waiting to be rediscovered, renewed and retold to a new generation of Indians. The story of the last 12 years is for many the story of that rediscovery. Every civilization has moments that seem to gather centuries into a single day. For many Indians, 22nd January 2024 was one such moment. As the sacred mantras rose into the skies of Ayodhya and Ram Lala was consecrated in the grand Ram Mandir, millions stood still. Lamps flickered in homes across India, eyes filled with tears, hearts remembered. It was not merely the consecration of a deity. It felt as though a civilization had completed a long pilgrimage and finally arrived home.
राम भारत की आस्था है, राम भारत का आधार है, राम भारत का विचार है, राम भारत का विधान है, राम भारत की चेतना है, राम भारत का चिंतन है, राम भारत की प्रतिष्ठा है, राम भारत का प्रताप है, राम प्रवाह है, राम प्रभाव है, राम नेति भी है, राम नीति भी है। ये भव्य राम मंदिर साक्षी बनेगा भारत के उत्कर्ष का, भारत के उदय का। ये भव्य राम मंदिर साक्षी बनेगा भव्य भारत के अभ्युदय का, विकसित भारत का।
The lamps of Ayodhya illuminate the path to Kashi, the eternal city, where time itself seems to pause before the sacred waters of Ma Ganga. When Narendra Modi arrived in Varanasi in 2014 as a parliamentary candidate, he spoke words that resonated deeply across the nation.
संकट मोचन की सारी शक्तियां जहां अपरंपार है, वो भूमि, उस भूमि की सेवा करने का मुझे सौभाग्य मिला है और मेरा मन कहता है मैं आया नहीं हूं, मुझे भेजा भी नहीं है, मां गंगा ने बुलाया है।
Those words were not political, they were civilizational. Along the ghats where saints, scholars, poets and seekers had walked for thousands of years, the Kashi Vishwanath corridor emerged as a bridge between heritage and modernity.
Today, devotees can walk from the sacred Ganga directly to the abode of Vishwanath, experiencing not merely a temple visit, but the living continuity of a civilization that has endured for thousands of years. Beyond the banks of the Ganga lies another sacred center of India's spiritual legacy, Ujjain, the city of Mahakal, where time itself bows before the divine. The Mahakal Lok Corridor transformed the ancient precincts of Mahakaleshwar into a magnificent cultural landscape. Towering sculptures, sacred motifs, and grand avenues now tell stories once confined to scripture. Here, mythology breathes and heritage speaks. From the city of Mahakal, the journey rises to the Himalayas, where India's spiritual traditions have long found their highest expression. High above the clouds, amid silence broken only by mountain winds, emerged an unforgettable image. Prime Minister Modi seated in meditation inside a cave near Kedarnath. It was more than a photograph. It was a reminder of an ancient India whose sages sought truth not in palaces but in solitude. Nearby stood Kedarnath itself. While the temple stood firm, the Kedar Dham was scarred by the devastating floods of 2013. Through extensive redevelopment and restoration, the sacred Dham rose again, embodying the resilience that has defined Indian civilization for thousands of years. From the Himalayas, the journey turns westward to the sacred shores of Dwarka, where the memory of Krishna still lingers in the sea breeze. Through renewed national attention to its spiritual and historical significance, Dwarka once again entered the popular imagination as a symbol of India's ancient maritime and civilizational glory. And then, at the southernmost edge of Bharat, where three seas embrace, another powerful image entered history. On the Vivekanand Rock Memorial at Kanyakumari, Narendra Modi sat in meditation at the very place associated with Swami Vivekanand's spiritual awakening before he carried India's message to the world. The symbolism was profound. One monk had awakened India's confidence in the 19th century. Another generation was now seeking to rekindle that confidence in the 21st. That confidence traveled across oceans through yoga. When India successfully secured United Nations recognition for the International Day of Yoga, an ancient practice once confined largely to ashrams and seekers became a global celebration. Every year, millions across continents now gather to practice a gift that India has offered humanity, a path towards harmony between body, mind and spirit.
Let us use the power of yoga to build bridges of friendship, a peaceful world, and a cleaner, greener, and sustainable future. Let us join hands together to realize the goal of one earth, one family, one future.
Yet a civilization lives not only through monuments and traditions, but through connections among its people. Through initiatives such as Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat, which encourages cultural exchange between states, and the Kashi Tamil Sangamam, which celebrates the ancient bonds between Kashi and Tamil Nadu, long-standing cultural connections were rediscovered and celebrated. The message was simple yet profound. India has always been diverse, but beneath that diversity beats a single civilizational heart. The same spirit guided efforts to preserve manuscripts, safeguard traditional knowledge, share sacred Buddha relics with the world, and bring home hundreds of stolen idols and antiquities. Every returning artifact was more than stone or metal. It was a fragment of India's memory finding its way back home. And so after 12 years, what emerges is not merely a catalogue of projects. It is the story of a civilization remembering itself. A story written in the lamps of Ayodhya, reflected in the waters of Ma Ganga, echoed in the chants of Mahakal, whispered by the winds of Kedarnath, carried by the waves of Dwarka, and illuminated by the spirit of Vivekanand at Kanyakumari. For many, this has been more than governance. It has been a cultural renaissance, a renewed effort to reconnect modern India with the wisdom, faith, confidence, and continuity of an ancient civilization. a civilization that was never lost, only waiting to awaken once more. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now on to some updates on the 12th International Day of Yoga to be celebrated on June 21st. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has written to Gram Pradhans, they are village heads across the country ahead of the 12th International Yoga Day on June 21st, urging the local government to promote yoga even at the village and grassroots level. From Harappan meditating figures and Upanishadic roots to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Buddha's early training and modern yoga gurus who globalized the ancient Indian practice. Our next report traces yoga's aims of health, longevity and happiness. It also delves into how contemporary world leaders have helped make the International Day of Yoga a worldwide celebration. Sujata Lojap reports.
History of yoga is as old as human civilization, certainly much older than archaeological records. In Harappa, the sculpture of meditating yogi and seal of yogi found in Mohenjo-daro is probably the most ancient record, which dates back to 3000 BC. The root of yoga is in Upanishads, where we find detailed descriptions of Ashtanga Yoga, also known as the 8 limbs of yoga, describing 72,000 human nerves and yoga feet. The Upanishadic truth of prana or vital forces was taught in Bhagavad Gita in detail. Lord Krishna says, Pranapano samokritva nasabhyantar charino, shutting out all external contacts and fixing the gaze between the eyebrows. By controlling the movements of breath, one conquers chief prana and becomes immortal. Such yogi never ages and lives for thousands of.
Okay, now let's get you visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving in Geneva. From there on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will take a chopper ride to Evian, France, the lakeside town hosting the G7 summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi here leaving for Geneva from the Vienna International Airport. Prime Minister Modi in the hours ahead will participate in the G7 summit in the third leg of his two-nation visit. Upon arrival, French President Emmanuel Macron will formally welcome the Prime Minister. He will then participate in a working session of the summit on the theme Forging New Partnerships and Rebuilding International Solidarity, along with the leaders of the G7 countries, partner countries, representatives of the World Bank and the African Development Bank. So, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has wrapped up a very productive Slovakia visit, and from here onwards, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves for Geneva from the Vienna International Airport and will hence reach Evian, France to attend the G7 summit. The Indian Prime Minister is expected to spend the next few days meeting world leaders in France. He is also scheduled to hold bilateral meetings with several world leaders. This includes Canada's Prime Minister, United Kingdom's Prime Minister and the President of the UAE. And after attending the working session of the G7 summit, Prime Minister Modi is expected to attend a gala dinner hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. So, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaving for Geneva from the Vienna International Airport, from where he will take the chopper ride to Evian, France, the lakeside town hosting the G7 summit. And very quickly, let's give you some updates on the ongoing FIFA World Cup. Cape Verde created one of the biggest shocks of the tournament, holding title favourites Spain to a draw in their tournament debut. The final whistle triggered jubilant celebrations among Cape Verde supporters, who hailed the result as a historic achievement. In Boston, home to the largest Cape Verdean community in the United States, fans gathered at a city centre fan zone to watch the match and erupted in joy after the draw. The hard-fought point against one of football's traditional powerhouses has become one of the standout moments of the World Cup so far. In another Group G match, Iran fought back twice to secure a 2-2 draw against New Zealand in their FIFA World Cup opener. Elijah scored both goals for New Zealand, giving his side the lead in each half. However, Iran responded through Ramin Razian and Mohammad Mohebi to earn a crucial point. The entertaining contest left both teams with 1 point as the race for a place in the knockout stage begins. While in the opening Group G match, Romelu Lukaku forced Egypt into an own goal within seconds of entering the game and favoured Belgium escaped with a 1-1 draw. Lukaku's equaliser came just 28 seconds after entering the game in the 66th minute and prevented Egypt from winning their first game in their 4th World Cup appearance. Egyptian coach Hossam Hassan opted to play Mohamed Salah centrally on the legend's 34th birthday, and the move worked out brilliantly from the outset. After drawing an early yellow card on Belgium, Salah then delivered a clinical pass to Ashaw on the edge of the defence. So that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India with my entire team here in New Delhi. It's a wrap on the show. You can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.
स्वागत